What's good with y'all, man? Appreciate y'all for coming back to the channel. Appreciate y'all for clicking on the video, man. Listen, before we get into it, y'all already know what to do. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Drop a like. Go ahead and absolutely destroy that like button. Listen, guys. So, man, this is a real serious topic. So let me go ahead and, get serious. In the world of professional athletes, professional sports, and even people who are influencers, entertainers, whatever you want to call them, there's always going to be people or a group of people that want to bring you down and destroy you for absolutely no reason at all. And this is a clear example of that. So here we have a woman who, I will not say her name, but we have a woman who is attempting to bring down a Major League Baseball or potential Major League Baseball star simply because of the money that he can produce. Okay, and this is a sad story that occurs far too often in America, all over the world, but I think it's really prevalent in America and it's really prominent in the United States. Now, it seems as though this lady was trying to extract resources from this guy who she literally didn't know. And she was, caught red-handed by a very, very smart interviewer. We're going to go ahead and review this video. I want you guys to remember to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Let's get straight into it.
Yesterday, we discussed the conclusion of former Major League Baseball player Trevor Bauer's lawsuit stemming from an alleged sexual assault and Bauer's recent video in which he released his side of the story with receipts. Joining me now to discuss that is Bauer's accuser herself, Lindsay Hill. Lindsay, I mentioned
You evil bitch.
Bauer's video in which he provided some receipts that, I'm going to be honest with you, make you look like a clout chaser, or I know some people are calling you a cleat chaser because admittedly you were chasing after several high-profile, wealthy baseball players. Trevor says everything was completely consensual. He also released these text messages that came out in court indicating that you had planned the whole thing out. So I want to read some of these texts from you to a friend between the two of you before you met Trevor, this one. Next victim, star pitcher for the Dodgers. Okay. Victim is an interesting choice of words. I'm going to allow you a chance to explain yourself. But after you agreed to meet, you asked your friend what you should steal. Your friend answered his money. He says, another one from you to a friend, I'm going to his house Wednesday. I already have my hooks in. You know how I roll. With a screenshot in which you told him, tryouts don't scare me, Bauer. Pick a day and I am there. Here are some more after you and Trevor met up. Net worth is $51 million, to which your friend responds, bitch, you better secure that bag. Your text, need daddy to choke me out, being an absolute whore to try to get in on his $51 million. You say this wasn't a setup. How can you expect anyone to believe that?
That's a great question. I really appreciate you having me on to even have this conversation. Obviously, there's a lot going on around this, so I really appreciate people who are asking questions about it. The first thing I want to say is, I think that Trevor did this intentionally with the text messages and how he framed this video. There's several things in it that are not correct. And I just want to start out by saying, it's so valid for people to question those text messages. But the root of the problem here is that he is presenting this as one conversation, when in reality he had thousands of messages to choose from, took those, made it look sequential, which it was not. There is no combined screenshot of those things going on one after the other. And as I said last night as well, there's no text message that ever exists. Otherwise he would have, put it out there, combining, anything about a setup through rough sex, finances all in one. Those were handpicked, and they were from multiple different conversations all before we met up. And I think that the video in general doesn't even talk about what actually happened between us two, which is what would have come out during a jury trial. These were all messages that happened before. And then, of course, the video is so valid as well for people to ask questions about. But I do think that video was entirely misleading. He also references the restraining order hearing, which people also have questions about. He says that he was cleared of any wrongdoing, which is actually incorrect. In our civil case, the judge had actually ruled that he had not been cleared of any wrongdoing, and that was a federal court judge. So,
Listen, man, I've been to the zoo before, and I went to the monkey exhibit, I went to the cow exhibit. I even went and saw a couple of pigs, and I've never smelled a bigger load of manure than the residue that's coming off of this girl's lips. Now, you guys gotta understand. She's essentially trying to claim that she's innocent because those text messages are non-sequential, when in reality, it doesn't matter the context of those texts. The raw material from those texts is enough to show that you are not innocent in this. You are somebody who is trying to poach, who's trying to leech, and who's trying to steal and do somebody wrong who you clearly have no right to do that to. This person is a baseball player who possibly looks at you as just the next girl who is going to have sex with him. And you're looking at it from a perspective of how much money can I extract from this guy for wrongly accusing him of sexual assault. And from the looks of it, it seems as though she's done this before. The word choice was next victim. How can you say next victim if this is not a pattern and this is not a behavior that you've repeated in the past? I mean, to me, it just seems a little fishy, but you know me, I'm a fair guy. So let's go ahead and continue listening to what this lady has to say.
So I want to get to the domestic violence restraining order hearing as well, but I mean, so you're saying that it's misleading because you're admitting that you did talk about rough sex and wanting rough sex. You did talk about him needing to choke you out. You did talk about stealing his money, but it's misleading because he put them together in the same video as if you had said it in the same conversation when in fact it was separate conversations, correct? That's why it's misleading?
Correct. And as well as not showing, the messages that occurred after where it discusses it strictly in the term of, being a baseball wife or something like that.
Or something like that. Okay. I'm just curious if you know, like, the statistical likelihood of you texting your friend premeditated texts saying you wanted him to choke you out and steal his money, take his money, and him actually choking you out, and those two things not being related.
It's a really, really valid question. And like I said, I think you would need to look through each conversation. Those were handpicked. But I can, like I said last night, completely own the fact that those were overly sarcastic, overly inappropriate to some may seem. And it does give off that impression about clout chaser and totally attention-seeking behavior. But I just feel that they have, nothing to do with what actually took place. But it does cause a lot of questions as to why I was, seeking Trevor out. But at the end of the day, there was nothing about a setup with violence and all of this stuff and getting financial gain. It was strictly, a 25 or however old I was at the time, girl trying to get attention from those things and phrasing it in a sarcastic way before we met.
Okay.
So I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to go ahead and call cap. And the main reason why I'm going to call cap on this girl's perspective on her story is because she's been given multiple opportunities to go ahead and defend herself as to why these texts are misleading. And she hasn't. All she does is keep saying that it's misleading and that they're cherry picked and that you're going to have to go through all of the entire conversations so that you can get a general understanding of what happened. When in reality, you're right there. If you remember any of these conversations, why don't you describe what's been going on? Why don't you describe the situation in its absolute clarity? Why prolong the inevitable and make us keep searching when, it's your text. These are your words. And she's making it seem like she wasn't trying to extract any money from him when the texts clearly talk about how much money this guy has and how whether you're trying to get it through a sexual assault case or whether you're trying to just, become his wife and come up that way, you're trying to get some of his money. So, yeah, I agree with the reporter that it is a very bad look for her, but she's trying to play it off and make it seem like she's innocent and like she's the victim here, which, that's typically how it happens, right? But let's go ahead and continue to see what else she has to say. I know this is a very controversial topic, so I want to give her as much time to explain herself as possible. I don't want to talk too much here.
Okay, so I've got a couple other questions on that. So you said in court that he sexually assaulted you on 2 different encounters, and you say the first time that you say he choked you unconscious. Clearly the insinuation is you didn't like it, because now you're calling it an assault, but why did you make the drive back to LA to meet back up with him a second time if this man had just assaulted you by your own account?
That's a stupid decision. that can only be made by a stupid idiot?
I think that's a really good question. How I phrased it and how I in the past is that I was so embarrassed by the first encounter that I felt something, deep in me to go and take the power back and to be better and to be what he wanted in a sense. And so I don't know. There's been a lot of, through all the processes, witness experts on the psychology of what happens when you are assaulted, XYZ. But there was something in me that felt like I needed to make it better in a sense. I think that's a really good question. How I phrased it and how I in the past is that I was so embarrassed by the first encounter that I felt something, deep in me to go and take the power back and to be better and to be what he wanted in a sense. And so I don't know. There's been a lot of, through all the processes, witness experts on the psychology of what happens when you are assaulted, XYZ. But there was something in me that felt like I needed to make it better in a sense.
Okay, guys. So, I mean, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. I mean, you saw it. But this has gotten to the point of just simple babble, right? Like, she's not really saying anything. The clear question was, hey, if this guy assaulted you, why did you go back for seconds? And she says, well, I wanted to take the power back. You didn't want to accuse him at that moment when he had assaulted you. No, you wanted seconds. You wanted to go back and get assaulted again so you could take the power back? How does that even make sense? I mean, listen, I hope you guys are seeing what I'm seeing, but I'm also really glad that this is a woman that's interviewing her because I don't think a man could do this. I truly think if a man were to be giving this interview and ask these tough questions that she's asking right now, he'd be called every name under the book. He'd be called a sexist, a misogynist, a victim blamer, all these new buzzwords that they created to make you sound evil. He'd be named all of these things, but since it's a woman who's holding her accountable, the same sting isn't there if you try to use those words. Now, since we've heard from the so-called victim, let's hear from the guy who I believe is the actual victim in this scenario, and let's see what he has to say. I believe Trevor Bauer went on Fox and, gave his own spin on the story. So let's go ahead and dive into what he had to say about this.
Next victim, star pitcher for the Dodgers. A text Lindsey Hill sent to a friend before she ever even met me. What should I steal? She asked another, in reference to visiting my house for the first time. The answer? Take his money. So how might that work? I'm going to his house Wednesday, she said. I already have my hooks in. You know how I roll. Then, after the first time we met, net worth is 51 mil, she said. Bitch, you better secure the bag, was the response. But how is she going to do that? Need daddy to choke me out, she said. Being an absolute whore to try to get in on his 51 million, read another text. Then, after the second time we met, former Padres pitcher Jacob Nix told her, you got to get this bag. I'll give you 50,000, Lindsay replied. Her AA sponsor asked her at one point, do you feel a tiny bit guilty? Not really, she replied. Since then, her legal team has approached me multiple times about coming to a financial settlement. But, as I have done since day one, I refuse to pay her even a single cent. In August of 2021, Lindsey Hill's claims were heard in court. And during those legal proceedings, critical information was deliberately and unlawfully concealed from me and my legal team. Information like this video, which was taken by Lindsey Hill herself the morning after she claimed she was brutally attacked, emotionally traumatized, and desperate to get away from me. And now we have the metadata, so there can be no dispute. It was taken mere minutes before she left my house on the morning of May 16th, 2021, without my knowledge or consent, of course.
Okay, so that reporter was definitely correct. He came with receipts. I've never, ever heard of an event where a woman claims to have been sexually assaulted by a man and is at his house resting in his bed, taking a selfie video with him the next morning. I mean, to the best of my knowledge, there is no relation between the two of them. Meaning that she could have left any time, but she chose to stay there throughout the night with the man that just sexually assaulted and traumatized her, and we're supposed to believe that she's in some type of danger? I mean, listen, if I were in a lion's den and I'm taking a selfie video with the lions, it's clear that I'm not intimidated by them, I'm not scared of them, I'm not traumatized by them, it's probably evident that I'm having fun with them, or that I'm happy to be there, or that I want people to see that I was there, right? But I don't think I can make the claim that I'm scared if I'm just chilling with the lions and taking a freaking selfie with them. It just doesn't make sense. So we'll hear a little bit more of what he has to say, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this video up. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're liking this video, and like the video as well.
In it, you can see her lying in bed next to me while I'm sleeping, smirking at the camera without a care in the world, or any marks on her face. I think it paints a pretty clear picture of what actually happened the evening of May 15th and why the video was originally concealed from us. After hearing the evidence available to her, Judge Diana Gold-Saltman found that Lindsay Hill had misled the court. She found her claims to be materially misleading. She denied her request for a domestic violence restraining order, and she found that no sexual assault or non-consensual conduct took place. Now, some of you might not know about restraining order hearings. I know I didn't, but I've since learned that it's extremely rare for a request for a restraining order to be denied because the standard of proof that you need to obtain one is extremely low. So you can make of that what you will. The fact is, I was never arrested. I was never charged with a crime, and I won the only legal proceeding that took place without my side of the story even being heard. And most importantly, as I've said from day one, I never sexually assaulted Lindsay Hill, or anyone else for that matter. So I sued her, which prompted her to countersue me. Quite frankly, regardless of the outcome in court, I've paid significantly more in legal fees than Lindsay Hill could ever pay me in her entire life. And I knew that would be the case going in. But the lawsuit was never about the money for me. It was the only way for me to obtain critical information to clear my name. The discovery process in that lawsuit recently concluded, at which point Lindsay Hill's legal team again came to us with another proposal to resolve the case. This time, however, they weren't seeking any money from me. Having received much of the information that had been hidden from us, a small portion of which I've referenced here, I was willing to agree to the terms proposed. Both parties would drop their respective lawsuits, and neither of us would pay either side any money. I also retained my right to speak publicly about the case, something I have not been at liberty to do since June of 2021. So, as of today, both lawsuits have been settled.
Well, there you have it, guys. Make sure to like the video if you like the video and subscribe to the channel. This is a big win for men everywhere, I believe. I truly believe, because for years, we've had a lot of false cases that, just completely derail a guy's future, completely ruin his life, ruin his, chances at making money, and there's never any justice. But I think that tide may be turning slowly, ever so slowly, but it may be turning. And here's why. A lot of people are really getting on this girl's case because they believe that this is trash and that she shouldn't be able to get away with this. Right? And they're looking at a guy like Trevor Bauer, who has to go through the scrutiny and who has had to go through the scrutiny of this for 2 years. You heard him say that he wasn't able to talk about this for roughly 2.5 years now. So 2.5 years later, he's finally able to clear his name. And, there's people who have never heard of this guy. Like, I never heard of him before today. But there's other people who have heard about him and heard about him in a negative light. And that's the perception that they're going to have for this guy for the rest of their lives. They're going to think this guy is a sexual assaulter, and they're going to think that he abuses women for the rest of their lives just because of this lie that this woman told. So, guys, please remember, I hope all of you get money. I hope all of you guys become successful individuals. Be very careful of not only the women that you keep around, but be careful of all the company that you keep around, because you never know who the snake in the grass is. People can present themselves as friends. They can present themselves as someone who has your best interest at heart. But in the end, all they want to do is bring you down. And I'm glad that Trevor was able to get his justice. I'm glad he was able to tell his side of the story. And honestly, I hope that this woman gets whatever is coming to her. Y'all stay blessed. Turn those post notifications on. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and wait for the next one. Peace.